Hello there good people, welcome, my name is Marco and I'm a full stack developer. And this is the first video in the Learn React with me series. Actually, it's not really the first one, but I consider it like episode number 1. So in this series, I want to develop a few projects from beginner to intermediate level with React, specifically with React. Now, for today's video, I have something in mind, and that is a password generator. Now, it's not too complex, and believe it or not, it's one of the most watched videos on my channel. I did something similar a few months back, making a random string generator with JavaScript, and that video got almost more than 100 views, which is amazing for this channel. For this video, I want to do something similar, but of course, the front end on the web is going to be built with React, and the logic, the actual password generator, is gonna be made with JavaScript, but I want to, improve it a little bit. Let's say a version 2.0. In this video, I'm not gonna worry about styling. I've already written all the styles because that's not the point of this series. But if you were interested in knowing the styles and the CSS behind it, I will upload everything on GitHub, so just feel free to visit the page. On a difficulty scale, this is a beginner level project, but it is very basic, but it has everything React has to offer basically. So we're gonna see states, we're gonna manage state, we're gonna manage hooks and use them. We're gonna see components. I mean, all the basic stuff, it's in here. One last thing before we begin is that if you want to see a particular project, a particular thing developed on this channel with React, just let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to do it if I can, of course, and consider that it should be in that range of beginner to intermediate level. Also, subscribe to help this channel, and if you enjoyed this video, well then, leave a like at the end. Okay, I think everything is set up. I said everything, almost. Let's react. Alright, I have my code editor in front of me. This is VS Code, and in the terminal I can see that I'm in this folder, which is the main folder for the React projects. And the first thing you want to verify is that you have Node installed, because we are gonna need it. Can you verify it? Just type node-v and you should get like the version of Node that you have installed. Along with it, you should also have npm. And if you don't, well, that's easy. Just go to the nodejs.org website and just download the latest version, the most stable version. Along with it, you should have npm as well. So why do I want these packages, this environment installed? Because I want to run a command which is npx. It's similar to npm, but it's not it's not on your machine. It's a long story, but basically when you want to start a React project, you run npx create React app like this, and then you give it the name of the project itself. And this is basically going to create the folder, the further structures, install all the packages, all the dependencies, and it's a lot of work that you can save. You can save yourself a lot of work. So in this case, I'm going to call this like password generator like this. I'm not sure that it takes this this naming. Let's do it like this. Let's do underscore. Okay, so I launch this, and this is gonna take a while, like a couple of minutes. So let's time travel, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're back, and at the end of the installation, you should have this exact same view. These are basically the commands that you can run. And the main thing is that you're gonna have a folder right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You're gonna have a folder right here, which has the name of what we told create React app to do. And if I open this folder, now I have this whole new structure right here. And let's just explore it a little bit. So the node modules are basically the node packages, the dependencies, everything that we're gonna use. The public is where all the images, the static files are going to be, more or less, but mainly there is this index.html, and this is going to be the main entry point for the HTML, so for the markup. And as you can see, there is basically nothing. There is just this div with the ID of root, and basically what React is going to do is going to put everything that we write in React inside this root div. But this HTML works exactly like in HTML. So yeah, I can just change the title, a password generator, and I can save it, and a bunch of junk here and there. The most important thing, one second. Okay. The most important thing is the src folder. Here, I basically have all the structure for creating my React app. And the first thing you want to take a look at is the index.js. Index.js is the main JavaScript entry point. The browser is going to look for this, and basically this is where React is doing its magic. As you can see, it's a bit weird. It's not really JavaScript because I have these tags right here that don't really mean anything. But I want to start with eliminating some redundant files that we don't actually need. Like for example, the readme, then these two tests. They're useful, but not for now. And the index.css as well. I'm just gonna delete them. We don't need it. So right now I just got the index.js, and I have to eliminate this because now this link is broken. This one is not going to work, and this one as well. Beautiful. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna notice is this kind of syntax right here. And what basically this is the fundamental of React. This app between the tags is called a component. Now, what is a component? Well, a component is basically a function, and it's a function that returns HTML. Now, what React does in this particular function right here, the render function, is not really necessary to know. It's just puts all the JavaScript in the render HTML on the HTML file that we saw before. What we want to take a look at is each individual component. This is the first component. It's called app, and naming convention dictates that component starts with a capital letter. And as you can see, it's basically a function. And it's a very peculiar function because I'm writing JavaScript, but this is not JavaScript. This actually doesn't look anything like JavaScript. This is an hybrid language, which is called JSX, and stands for JavaScript and XML. XML is a markup language. It's very similar to HTML, but you need to remember all the time when you're writing in React or you're writing a component that this is not actually HTML. So the mindset behind this shouldn't be an approach like HTML, but it should be more an approach that is really unique to React. So as I said, we can eliminate this because we don't have the logo anymore. I can save it. Now, sometimes you're gonna see weird things, like I'm importing a CSS file inside a JavaScript file. How is that possible? No, you don't need to worry. This is all taken care by the powerful engine that is running behind React, like Webpack and Babel, that does all the parsing, and I can import the CSS. And this is actually the way I import the styling for my component. And even if I want to say, like before, if I want to import like an image or an SVG, I have to import it like this. This is rule number 1. Okay, so I have all this junk here and I don't want this. But basically this, I can just say maybe something else. And this is going to have a CSS file. Okay. And this is a bunch of stuff that I don't really need now. And I can take a look. If I go here into my terminal and I clear it, I can see that I go into my src folder, I go into my password generator and then the src. Of course, it doesn't exist, like this. And what I want to do now is to run the npm start. This will spin up a local development server directly from React. And if you ever used like vanilla JavaScript for your projects and you use the live server, this is basically the same thing, but it's native in React. And as you can see, I got my hello there here. And if I inspect it, you can see that I have my root element. Then I have a div with a class of app and with the hello there inside. And it's basically this. So the component is rendering this part of the HTML. Now, let's start building our component for the password generator. So one thing I want to do is get rid of this, and I'm going to give it another class name. Now, in JavaScript, class is actually a reserved keyword. You use class like this when you want to initialize a class, like a car, okay? You usually initialize it like this. So I said that this is basically JSX, and you cannot use reserved JavaScript keywords in JSX because they are reserved. So you're not supposed to do that. Instead, what React propose is just to, instead of using class, is use class name. This is basically it corresponds to the class property in an HTML file. And if I save it and I call it container and I go into my inspector, I can see that it's translated with class and container. It works like this for certain elements that have a corresponding reserved keyword in JavaScript. Second thing I want to do is to provide my own component, because the app component is basically the main entry points for storing all your components to create the structure. And it's very convenient to just create your own components and then put it in here. This is convenient for even when you do like you work with React Router and you create different routes. Here you can just control the routing and stuff. But basically this is where you want to store your components. So I don't have any components yet. In my SRC, I'm gonna create a folder and I'm gonna call it components. Inside this, I create a file, which is going to be just a form. And pay attention, this is capital letter, and I'm going to use the JSX extension. So basically React knows that this is a component, and VS Code knows that this is a JSX file. The first thing I want to do is to import React from React. Then I need to, and this is fundamental, I have to remember to export it because I have to import it in another file. I want to export it as default. The function is going to be form. This is basically going to be the name of the component. And inside here, I just return a div. And hi, I am a form component. Just like this, okay? So if I go here, now I can import it. I can just write components, right? And I can say import form. This is our import, it's super sweet. And now I can use it here. And how do I use it? I put it in tags. So this is my form component. So what should I see on the page now? Should I see form? What should I see? Well, let's see. And I can see that, hi, I am a form component. I'm actually seeing, you can see nested, this component right here. Beautiful. Now we can start working. Here, I'm going to have the form itself. So let me just do one thing. And as I said, the styling is not really the focus of this video, so you excuse me, but I've already written the styling for this app, and basically, yeah, now we got body that is light gray and everything is centered, but I'm gonna add classes as I go along. Now I don't need this anymore, and I actually want to return a real form, which is semantically is more correct. Now inside this form, I want to have, so first of all, let's give it a class name. And I can use a form like this, password form, nice. Inside this password, I want to have an h2, which is going to be the header, like generate a secure password. Yeah, my spelling today is not really good. Okay. Then I will have a div, and inside this div, I will have, what can I have? An h4, and this is going to be actually my actual like password text, let's say. And this can be password inputs. Okay, this is going to be like the password itself. Underneath the text, I want to have another div, and I'm just gonna give it a utility class of flex, and inside here I'm gonna have a label, and I'm going to have an input. This input is gonna be number, and I'm gonna have a max of 72 characters, a min of, let's say, 6 characters, and I can say that it has a name, why not, of password length. This is just for me, and I also want to give it a style. Now I'm going to explain what I'm doing in a bit. Basically, I want to say a max width of, and I'm going to use 8 characters like this. Okay, so basically what I'm doing here is I'm using a combination of HTML and JavaScript. So this is still HTML. The type of the input is number, but this right here is an hybrid combination. The max is a property of an input. In numbers, it just gives HTML the maximum number that I'm allowed in that particular field. But the square brackets introduces a JavaScript syntax. Every time I use square brackets in JSX, in a JSX component, I'm basically saying to React, look, from here on, everything inside these brackets is JavaScript, so treat it as such. Everything outside is HTML, is normal HTML. Why am I using double brackets here? Well, because I'm using an object. So the first square brackets indicate that I'm in JavaScript. The second indicates that this is a JavaScript object. So it's pretty simple there. Second, why do I have this HTML for? This is very similar to the class name property. For is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. So in React, you use the HTML for. And this is going to be the label for this. Okay, I'm going to see it. And it's a password length. Question mark. Okay. Now I have this and it stops here, and I'm going to create another div with the class name of flex. I'm going to have another label, and this time the input is going to be of checkbox. Okay, I'm going to name it like numbers. No, I'm going to name it like numbers, and give it a name is just for the label, so that the label knows what it is referring to. And this is going to be include numbers. Okay, now this whole thing, if I save it, I want to copy it like this because it's going to be similar, but this is going to be the symbols, and this is going to be include symbols. Okay, and not like this. Okay, symbols. Nice. If I take a look at this now, all right, this is basically the form that I need. The styling is of course coming from my CSS file, but basically this is the h4. We can even inspect this. This is the h4 with the password text. This is each individual div, flex div. This is the label. So now everything works fine. I just need one last thing, which is the button. And this is just going to have a boring class name of button, and it's going to be generate. Okay, if I take a look at it, beautiful. Now, this was pretty easy. And as you can see, I basically created something in a very simple way, just using React. But the question might arise now, because couldn't I just use plain HTML to do this? Do I really have to use React for this? Now, React is very powerful when it comes to functionalities, because I want to do something with this. I want to be able to click on this checkbox, give it a length, etc. And when I click generate, I want to see the password generated on right here in this field. And to do that with vanilla JavaScript, I should, grab this checkbox, grab this other one, then the length, and then give it, to digest to a particular function, and the function will give me the random password. But like this, you'll see that it's a lot more simple and more intuitive, because everything basically stays in the logic of the component. It's gonna stay right inside here. So what I want to do now is basically create my utility function. So in my src, I'm gonna create another folder, and I'm gonna call it utils. I'm gonna create a file, and I'm gonna call it form.utils.js. And this is gonna be a JS file, and I usually prefer to use JSX for all my components and JS for all the rest, because like this I can differentiate between what is a React component and what is just plain JavaScript, like libraries and utility function, etc. Now right here I can create a simple function, which is generate password. This must be like the main function, and I'm gonna call it has number is the first parameter, by default is false, then has symbols, symbols, this is gonna be false as well, and then I want like length, I'm gonna say 6 by default if I don't put anything. Okay, this is not how you initialize it actually, is equal, yeah. Now this is another function, and inside here I want to return something. So I want to create basically a random generator, and I can do this very simply if I include this. So let's say, okay, let's include this, and I'm gonna call it alphabet. Then I'm going to include numbers, and this is this, and then symbols. Okay, and my symbols are going to be this. I think this is enough. Beautiful. Now, what you usually do, I mean, in the standard way, I like to say something like password. It's an empty, I initialize it as an empty array, and then I just provide a for loop equals 0, I smaller than len I++. For each one, I select a random index. Okay, and what I want to do is use the method floor, because I want to floor the number, the random number, because this is going to be used as an index. And when you go by index it doesn't make sense to have like 2.3. You need either 1, 2, 4, 5. Then I want to pick a random. And this function will return a random number between 0 and 1, but never 1. And I want to multiply it for, well, my character set, char set dot length. So if my character set has 20 characters, my length is going to be 20. And this random index is going to return something between 0 and basically 19, which is exactly what I want. Then I just say password.push and my char set at that random index. Okay, now you can say, what is this char set? Well, it's very simple. I will start from alphabet. So my char set is just going to be letters. This is the default. Then I can say that char set is equal, well, if it has numbers, I'm going to use a ternary. So if this is true, the char set is going to be equal itself plus numbers. Otherwise, it's just the same exact thing. And this works in the same way, but for symbols. If this is true, the char set is going to be this plus symbols, like this. Okay. Now, one last thing that I want to do, I want to return my password.join. And I'm going to join it like this. This will return a string of all the characters. And I need to remember and export this. I want to export generate password, okay? Because I need to import it right here. I'm in my React component. I can say utility functions. And I want to import generate password from this file, auto completion. And what I can say here is just to, let's try with something like this, generate password like this. Okay, so if everything goes according to plan, I is not defined, of course, because I didn't let I. Let I, nice. Okay, now it works. And in the console, I have my random, do you see it? I hope you do. I have my random 6-character password. So the function works, but there is a problem. So in my first video, I used exactly this approach. I had a set of characters, and then I was just looping through the length of the password that I want to have. And basically I was selecting each individual character one by one. I want to upgrade this with a new logic, an improved logic, 2.0. What is the problem here? The problem is that you can see it just looking at this character set. The letters are way more frequent than numbers and symbols as well. So when I create an entire character set with letters, numbers, and symbols, even if it's random, even if it's picked up by like at random, I have a much higher chance to pick up a letter. So the odds are not really equal between letters, numbers, and symbols. And that doesn't really make it, random. How can I fix this? Well, I have an idea. Let's try. First of all, I'm going to create another function, which is get a random letter. This is going to take basically anything. And in here, I'm going to create a char set on its own. And this is going to be this. Okay, so this function will return one random letter. Very simple. I want a random index. Okay, and this random index will follow this same exact logic. Okay, and then what I return the char set at that random index. So now this function will return just one letter among these letters. Okay, nice. What I want to do is basically copy paste this one 2 more times But instead of random letter, now I'm gonna have random number and random symbol right here. And of course, the char set is going to be a lot different. So in numbers, I'm going to have my digits, and in symbols, I can have my symbols. Beautiful. Okay, like this. Beautiful. So what I want to do now, I can get rid of this char set. Instead of a char set, I want to have a function set. Now this is the main function that is going to generate the password. And this is going to be a list. By default, this list is going to have the getRandomLetter function. Okay, so basically this one that gets me one random letter. Then, as I did before here, I want to say the function set is equal, well, if it has number, so if this is true, so I want to include numbers as well, I'm going to have another list. I'm going to use the spread operator to basically say, create another list with all the elements in this first list. So function set, I'm spreading the first list, and then add get random number. Otherwise, it's just function set. And this is the same for symbol. Get random symbol, but the ternary needs to be true for the symbol. Okay, so basically here, why is it giving me the error? As symbols. So basically here, what I'm telling it is to add to this list either the get random number function or the get random symbol function. And I want to do that because now I'll have my password over here in the same exact way. I'm going to loop over the length of the password that I want to have. I'm selecting a random index, but this time it's not going to be the char set, it's going to be the function set. So basically what this random index is looking for is a random function among these three. It depends, I might have just one, or I might have two, or I can have even the third one. Once I get the function, I can have my character. Because remember, now that I have gotten one of these function, I can select it. I can run it. So function set, and that random index is a function. And if I do it like this, I just call it. I basically execute it. This is going to return either a random letter, a random number, or a random symbol. And what I want to do, well, that's basically the same as before. I'm going to push the new character. Okay? And at the end, I'm just going to have the join as before. And if I take a look at it now, oh, of course, it's giving me like 3000 errors. Okay, because I'm doing something with const, and this should be let instead of const, because I cannot change const. That's amazing. And if I rerun this, I have my random string. It doesn't look any different. And why? Well, that's very simple. When I write it in my component, I not specifying it, but if I say true, so it has numbers, and true, it has symbols, and I say like 24. Now I have symbols, numbers, and letters, and I can trust the fact they have the same odds to be picked up, because now what the random function does, it picks up one of these three functions in the list, and each function has 1/3 of a chance to be picked up. So no matter how long the character set inside the function is, I always have 1/3 of a chance. So 1/3 for the letters, 1/3 for the numbers, and 1/3 for the symbols. Okay, this is all fun and games, but how can this help? Well, we can now generate our password. And that's very easy. How? React provides what it's called hooks. And hooks are super powerful because they basically control the data in my component. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, this is data. This is something inside the div. The number that I put here is data. The fact that it is checked or not checked, this is data. I can control this via React. Like that, I would have what it's called a controlled component. So basically, I'm controlling the value with React. How does it work? Well, we can try with one. So let's say that has number, and set has number. This is how you would use this particular hook. Use state. Use state gives you returns two arguments. No, two arguments. Returns two things. One is the value of the particular variable, and the other is a function to change this variable. And you want to use the function to change the value because it's going to trigger the rerender, and you want that. Now, this has number will start at false. This is how you initialize it. So the default value of this has number is going to be false. Now, in one of these checkboxes, I can do something like this, like checked. Remember, if I want to use JavaScript, square brackets, and I can use has number. Now, this component is going to be a control component, but if I click it, nothing happens. And actually, I have a very useful warning right here, which is you provided a checked prop to a form field without an onChange handler. So now basically, React is controlling this component, but it has no idea how to change this. So it looks like it's not working. How can I make it work? Well, I provide an onChange. I follow the tip. I provide the onChange. In the onChange, I can just write a function. In this function, I just want to set has number to the opposite of what it currently is. So if it's true, I want it false. If it's false, I want it true. Now, if I go here, I can change it. And this is controlled by React. It's not controlled by JavaScript, by HTML, sorry. What's the problem with this approach? Now, control components are all fun and games, but I'm not a big fan of this. Why? Because every time I change the status or the state of this single checkbox, I have to re-render the entire form. This is how React works. If something changes, if the state changes, you need to re-render the component to see it on the actual DOM. And to re-render a component, I mean, React is very performant under this point, from this point of view, but you know, I'm not a big fan of re-rendering when it's not necessary. So what I like to do, instead of using control components, because really I don't need to re-render everything when the state changes here. So what I like to do is to use, instead of use state, is the use ref hook. And what I can do is, like for example, let's say that this is the number ref. Okay, I'm gonna use the use ref hook, and by default it's nothing. This use ref hook can be used to refer to certain particular HTML elements. So if I now use this and I say this is my number ref, okay, this will now refer to this particular input. This is not going to trigger a re-render, okay, because now it is basically managed by the HTML itself. It's not gonna re-render all the time, but I still have access to this value. So what I want to do is have 3 more of this. One is going to be for the symbols, and the other one is going to be for the length. Okay, nice. And I need to give this to this one. So ref is equal symbol ref, and the other one is this input right here. Ref is equal length ref. Beautiful. So how can I, create the actual password? It's very easy. I can provide like an onChange or an onSubmit. That's even better. I I can create a function, and I'm going to call it endo submit. This function is going to be an error function, okay? And basically what this does is, let's say that I console log the generate password, okay, with the number ref dot current dot checked, and I want this. This basically is saying number ref dot current, because useRef returns an object with current and the value. This current value refers to the actual input, and it's telling me if checked, this is going to be true if it is, false if it is not. The same thing will happen for the symbol, but I'm going to refer to the symbol ref. And last but not least, symbols. Okay, it's the length ref dot current dot value, which is basically the number of value. Now, I want to show you something. Here I can say, and I also want an event here because it's going to be passed here. So on submit, I want to run the endo submit like this. Is that the same thing? Okay, it's the same thing. And one other thing that I want to do is prevent defaults, so that, oh my God, not like this. Prevent default. Okay. Basically, this will prevent the default, like refreshing the page. If I go into my HTML now and I do generate, I don't have anything. Of course. Do this. I don't have anything. Neither. Why is that? Oh yeah, because you need like a default value here. Because basically what I'm passing here is this input here, and it's nothing. So yeah, it doesn't work if you do like nothing. But now I should generate this. I include numbers. I want to include symbols. I include symbols. I want to do the same with both. I want to generate like 12 characters. And I'm doing it. However, it's not showing up right here. Well, now I can use the useState hook. And this is going to be very simple, because you can just say set password, and the function that changes it, I'm gonna say useState. By default, it's an empty string. And now I want to control this value right here. And this is going to be password. So, as I said, if I just do this, nothing will happen. If I do this, I'm always going to log this anyway. That nothing shows up. Why? Well, because I'm not re-rendering anything. I need to trigger a re-render. How do I do it? I use the function that useState provides. So inside here, instead of console logging it, I'm gonna say that this is the new password. Let's see if I can do this. Let new password is equal to all this beautiful stuff, and it should be good. And then I want to use the set password, and I'm gonna set it as the new password. Okay, spelling is not my forte. New password like this. Let's see if it works. Now, if I do generate, I have my password. Isn't this cool? And as you can see, it's like 6 characters because the default I put here is 6. But I can choose, I don't know, 36 characters. And I have my 36 characters right here. And if I want to include numbers, well, we can do that. And we have numbers. Ooh, isn't that nice? Let's include symbols. Wow, just symbols and letters? Well, now we're talking. Well, as you can see, this was extremely simple to do with React. We are basically using all the tools that React is providing, hooks and state, and basically this is the entire logic. Of course, you got the function that generates the password, but this is reusable logic. This right here is very, I mean, we can say that these are very few lines of code. It's not much code. And if you had to do something similar with vanilla HTML and JavaScript, it would have taken a bit more time, but most importantly, it would be quite repetitive, you know, because you would have to select this, then check the values, then reset this field. And I mean, React makes it so clean and beautiful that, I mean, how can you not love it? So I say that for this video is all, and I hope you like it. If you did, just leave a like and share this video. Leave a comment down below to let me know what other project you like to see developed on this channel. I'd be happy to do it, and hope to see you at the next one. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and ciao.